the natural starting place is just what's happening in preseason camp, what's catching your eye, what's the chatter that you're picking up on. If you do follow this program, if you do follow this team, I mean, I'm sure that the people watching or listening to this broadcast, like they follow other podcasts, and like that's good. Like you want to be sure that you know everything that's happening with your favorite teams. So Ethan, what's your perception of everything that's going on in the world of USC preseason camp?
Yeah, there's a couple of standout topics that I saw this week. As always, let me pull up something that we can look at here. So the first thing is true freshman Floyd Boucard. He's been really making an impression on a lot of his teammates and his coaches. From what I've seen, he's obviously, I'll do a little background on him for those of you who don't know. He's a 3-star defensive lineman out of Miami Central. He is 6'3", 311 pounds. So not like the most highly regarded prospect, not a 5-star, but is a guy who has some size, obviously, and so that is probably part of what attracted USC to him initially. And he has an interesting background because he's originally from Canada, and he's just now in Miami for high school and then now at USC, and so he's super new to college football and all that. But he's really made an impression on some of his teammates and his coaches. Devin Tompkins has praised him recently. Sean Newa's praised him. D'Anton Lynn said he just does some things you can't coach. And, some of the insiders who are at camp or have noticed him having a sort of a swagger and a confidence that's sort of rare for a true freshman. And then there's a really interesting quote from Cameron Fountain about him, which Cameron Fountain, obviously going into his sophomore year, showed flashes last year, 19 tackles, 2 sacks. He said that he's actually learning some from Floyd Boucard, which is really kind of interesting given that, he's an older guy. Cameron Fountain is than Floyd is, but he said Floyd came in and surprisingly for a younger guy, he showed me some things from a different position that came from being in the film room with him and just watching him play. There's stuff that I take from his game and I put into mine. He's a great freshman to have around, and that was from USC Football Media Day. So kind of cool to see a defensive lineman come in, this young and have an impact this early, including on some of his older teammates and his coaches. So gotta love that. And then the other main guy that I'm seeing a lot of chatter about is Prophet Brown. Prophet Brown actually, I have something else to pull up for him. I came more prepared than I thought. Give me 1 second. So there's a quote here from D'Anton Lynn where he said that Prophet Brown has taken a big step in the offseason. He's one of the guys that we trust most on defense. Something else that he said about Prophet Brown is that outside of Kamari Ramsey, no one on the back end knows the defense quite like him. And then people are projecting Prophet Brown to be the starting slot quarterback, but he also could see time on the boundary. They're kind of trying out DJ Harvey in the slot as well. So really interesting there. Prophet Brown's obviously a guy who's been around for a while. It's his 5th year at USC. And, he's a Clay Helton guy, which is crazy to say. There's not many Clay Helton guys left, but he's been really waiting his turn, hasn't made many starts, has been kind of more of a rotational guy. And so to hear him in the same sentence as Kamari Ramsey, a guy who is obviously the incumbent best player on this defense is really something. So those are kind of the two things that I picked up on. I don't know if you're picking up on that as well, Matt, or if you have any things that you're picking up on from your side of things.
Well, just in terms of the conversation, the larger conversation surrounding this team and specifically this 2025 roster, Ethan, my sense is that, in terms of various position groups, the more a topic or a position group specifically is discussed, people can get either more exasperated by that topic or they can become more confident about that topic. And to me, it seems very clear that the more the defensive line at USC is discussed, the more everyone likes what they're seeing, the more optimistic and confident everyone in the building is that this group, this unit, this position is going to be really, really good. That seems to be the consensus. So before going any further with other tributaries or tangents or added topics, Ethan, let's address that. Like, do you get that same sense that like the defensive line is becoming really the anchor unit of this team? It's like the one thing that everyone in the building seems to be counting on as, hey, this is going to deliver for us. This group is going to be really good. We can have our debates and discussions about linebackers, secondary, offensive line, receivers, running backs, and of course quarterback, but defensive line has it pretty nailed down. Are you getting that same feel as I am?
I think the most relied on, most confident position people, like the most confidence that people place in the position that people are placing the most confidence in at this point is probably wide receiver. I'd put wide receiver over defensive line just because you have such established stars there in Mekhi Lemon and Jacoby Lane. At least, from people's perspective, people see them as having a lot of talent. They saw the flashes last year, obviously. And, those are guys that are getting put on award watch lists, which we'll talk about later in the show. And, are 90 overalls in the college football video game, just, guys that are expected to be the stars for this team. Mekhi Lemon obviously was one of the representatives at media days as well. So I feel like people are more excited about, more confident in the wide receiver room. It's not an insanely deep room, but I feel like there's, guys like Zacharias Williams behind them as well. That kind of there's some guys in there. There's some freshmen as well that are just getting people excited about the room behind those two guys. Then obviously you've got Lake McCree at the tight end that'll just kind of add to the receiving core. So it feels like the receivers people are the most confident in. But I think defensive line is maybe the position that people see the most potential for. I feel like every other position, USC fans could admit that there's some holes. There's some guys that you kind of look at that you're like, oh, I don't know. But for the defensive line, there's a lot of guys you can dream about. And I think that's why you're getting so much excitement about the defensive line, is because, guys like Floyd Boucard, guys like Jakeem Stewart, are just guys that are so big and so young and have so much potential. It's really the position that USC recruited best coming into 2025. That is kind of what creates all of that exciting discourse about the defensive line. So yeah, I think that's what's fueling the discourse, and not so much, people being the most confident about it. I don't think it's going to, I don't think there's enough established stars on the defensive line that going into the season, people are like, this, USC is going to be top 5 in the Big Ten, or, there's no like confident barometers of where USC's defensive line is going to be. I don't feel like, but there's just so much there to dream about because there's so much size, so much athleticism, and so much youth even on the defensive line. And now that we've got the new strength coach in as well, Tremaine Carroll, I think that's also helping people get excited. So more of dreams than reality, I would say at this point, but definitely a lot to talk about there for sure.